What's going on, guys? We are here and we are live for some Sports Wars Monday evening quarterback. Now, usually we're here following a game the week before. We did have the Pro Bowl, but I didn't watch a single second of it because it's basically two-hand touch at this point and is a pathetic excuse for football. But with that being said, we still do have a lot to talk about. I know somebody who may have enjoyed the Pro Bowl because it might be his last time on the field for a little while. That was Alvin Kamara. I don't think he realized that was going to be his last time on the football field for a while, but you never know. With that being said, Jeremy, how you doing?
Well, we would not have gone live today, but there's a special occasion. The Miami Dolphins have welcomed their black head coach in. We're here to celebrate that. It's a great moment for NFL history. And we're just here to celebrate diversity, inclusion, and representation. But in all seriousness, I think it's a pretty good hire for Miami. And I'm going to be pulling for Miami, obviously, with Tua, my boy. I'm hoping this is going to be a good move for him. I would have to imagine that he's definitely excited for this. It has to be a situation where both were comfortable with this. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's a good one. But yeah, there's a lot to make fun of with that. And we got a clip here in a bit we're going to show you that's memeable material for sure. Memeable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just excited because I finally have a black coach. I was waiting for a black coach to be in Miami, and we finally have one.
Right.
So Brian Flores doesn't count, obviously. Mike McDaniel, though. That's the type of diversity that I can get behind.
Yeah.
So it's going to be funny. Mike McDaniel, for those of you guys that don't know, he's pretty light skinned. I don't know if he's like half black, a quarter black, something like that, but he is technically biracial or multiracial. And Deadspin wrote an article on him. This is so funny. I'll probably bring this up later too. When we get to this entire hire, and we'll get Robert in here too, because Robert Barnes should be here. But sure, Mike McDaniel seems cool, but he's not worthy of a head coaching gig yet. Please stop and think before you inadvertently dub another young white guy as the next hot NFL coaching prospect. Editor's note, we learned after the publication that Mike McDaniel, whom we describe as a white guy, is in fact biracial. The article's original text remains, we regret the error. Yo, fuck off, bro. This entire article is based on him being white. Why would you leave it up? Deadspin is fucking garbage.
I love it. And the clip I'm going to play, we're going to use it on FNT every time someone calls us racist because we got quarter black there. It's like, no, he qualifies. He counts.
He does kind of look like quarter black, skin tone wise. So I guess that does make sense.
Oh, man. The gift that keeps on giving, identity politics. Absolutely hilarious. But yeah, no, it's it's weird. I still think it's weird. I think that I'm gonna make a bold statement right now. I don't believe Tom Brady has played his last game in the NFL. I just don't. I don't believe it. I don't. This dude brought his team back from 27-3. He led the NFL in passing, in yards, and touchdowns. He arguably an MVP season coming off of a Super Bowl season. I just can't. I don't think he's played his last game in the NFL. I really don't, but time will tell.
All right. Let me
what do you think about that, Ryan?
Well, I think that you're not far off. I really do. I think you're not far off. So Tony Romo actually suggested this. Tony Romo suggested a couple days ago, well, like a week ago, that before Tom Brady had announced he was retired, he made the statement that I think Brady needs to take a year or two off and maybe find some additional motivation to realize that he misses it, something like that, and he might come back for 1 or 2 years like Jordan. That's kind of what he thought. And that would be interesting. I don't think that that's an impossible idea. And the question is, how would people with the Bucs feel about that? Where does he go at that point? That would all be dependent on what state of the NFL is a couple years from now. But it doesn't feel like Tom Brady's ready to go. I think we all can agree to that.
Yeah, it really seems that he's going to be here for a while. I see the Hijabi Gamer in the chat. Hello, Hijabi Gamer. Long time no talk. We need to get Hijabi Gamer on for some gaming streams over on Gaming with Geeks. So good to see you here, though. good to see you here. But yeah, I do think it's a realistic possibility. But we'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. Maybe I just can't come to grips with the NFL season without Tom Brady. It's been 22 years, so it's crazy.
Yeah, I was talking about that when we reacted to Versailles, and I barely remember really NFL before that, because the first Super Bowl I legitimately remember, I remember watching like old ass Bears games when I was like 4 or 5, but I couldn't really comprehend or understand what was going on. The first Super Bowl I can remember is New England versus Green Bay. And, you know, that was only a couple years before Tom Brady came into the league. So I barely remember the NFL without Tom Brady.
I definitely remember it without Tom Brady. But it's because I'm an old man. But, you know, it's weird, man. It's weird without him, you know, anticipating him and what type of season his team's going to have. But we'll see as the season gets closer. Because he made this decision so quickly, dude. So quickly. So, I don't know. Man, a lot of super chats coming in. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Smash the melee button.
We appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Let's hit a couple of those. And as we're speaking, Robert comes in because I accidentally sent the link to Jeremy's email because I'm a dumb fucking idiot.
What a dumbass.
But Robert is here now. Robert Barnes, how you doing, brother?
Good.
We're supposed to be having a respectable organization here, Ryan, and you know that's the only way we can get Robert around here, and then you're just fucking it all up. So
that's true. But you could have said you sent it to me, but you didn't mention that to me. So
well, you know, if I was Brian Flores, I would say it's all because of racism.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's poetic justice that, you know, the Dolphins have replaced Brian Flores with a black head coach. You know,
that's right.
That's right. It's absolute.
Let me play this clip. Look, I'm just going to play this clip right now. So this right here, this clip, I just ran across this, and we are going to use this on Friday Night Tights anytime they call us racist, since we have quarter black on here. Check this one out right here. This is beautiful.
This is the new thing. Owners want the young and up-and-coming, smart, offensive mind. Hey, Mike McDaniel, just for everybody out there, also, he is a minority hire. He's African-American. It's the lightest. He's very light-skinned. I know a lot of people didn't know that. I knew Mike McDaniel for 4 years and did not realize he was African-American.
Multiracial is how it was characterized,
yes,
but it
right.
counts. It counts.
It counts. Mike Florio says it counts.
It counts, everybody.
As a minority, everyone. The great Mike Florio, ambassador of all things diversity and racism, has said that Mike McDaniel is black enough. Incredible.
Oh man, that's so
classic.
funny.
I mean, I do think that the lawsuit and the media coverage of the lawsuit will give a boost to black coaching candidates that that otherwise might not have been hired. Though the NFL over the last 20 years, I think in an average year has had a disproportionately high percentage of black coaches, head coaches and assistant coaches compared to their population. Because when it comes to the player pool, that's overwhelmingly African-American. But the coaching pool looks like America. The coaching pool, except you don't have a lot of Asian coaches. You know, that's about it. And you don't have as many Latino coaches, you know, in this version of football. In soccer, you actually have a disproportionate number of Latino coaches. But so they have been, the groups that have been historically underrepresented in coaching from a American population perspective have been Asians and Latinos, not been the whole, maybe the Samoans have a grounds for objection in terms of underrepresentation, but that's about it. But I think this will lead to, there were so many open jobs, 6 head coaching jobs open. It looks like, the Texans are hiring Lovie Smith. I think that's a solid hire. I don't think it's, I think Lovie
it's a very safe hire. Yeah.
Yeah. And Lovie mostly overperformed with the Bears. The Bears never had a decent quarterback his whole stretch. And yet they were, often on the cusp of or in the playoffs. I mean, even took them to the Super Bowl with Rex the Hex Grossman. That was an impressive run. So I think and I think actually Brian Flores is a solid coach. I think he burned his unnecessarily, unless Lovey and everybody's going to be sending him kickbacks. I think he unnecessarily burned some bridges here. The Colin Kaepernick approach is not the best approach to handle the NFL. And his lawsuit is BS. I mean, as Clay Travis documented, he has some NFL rules violations, but none of them are rooted in racism. None of them are explained by racism. The NFL made more black millionaires than any league and any institution in American history.
Yep.
So the idea that it's racist, I mean, come on.
It's so ridiculous.
Well, as a lawyer, Robert, I imagine you could tell right off the bat that it was a garbage lawsuit. Because of the content, but two, lawsuit. Because they had the first two things before their initial statement. They had the thing from Belichick, the text saying, "Oh, I guess it meant Brian Daboll," and then they had a random ass Martin Luther King Jr. quote that has no legal bearing at all in any way, shape, or form. And then the first sentence of the actual lawsuit was, "We just want it known that on the first day of February, the first day of Black History Month, we're filing this lawsuit, because of all these other people before."
It felt more like a PR release than an actual lawsuit, which is all they're trying to do is to get the mainstream covers, the Chris Mortensons of the world who said this is the most important moment in my 50 years of covering the NFL, which is the most.
It was an extortion effort for fellow black coaches, and Flores knows. If you look at it, when black head coaches get hired, not all, but many of them, frankly, racially discriminate in their hiring practices. They will hire a bunch of black associate coaches. I mean, clearly they believe that to some degree that, this is protecting their own and this is counterbalancing what they perceive as racial exclusion in some instances. But I mean, like Tony Dungy, over half his staff typically would be African-American. You're going to tell me that was the random choice of the most qualified in the coaching pool? Probably not. And so there was a lot of that. And so Flores knows I'm going to help a couple of black coaches get head coaching gigs. They're going to reward me by hiring me. And when the suit is dismissed and gone. So it was purely a PR move, partially an extortion move, barely legalized extortion, but extortion nonetheless in its mindset and mentality, a very Avenatti-esque kind of move. And I think it's too bad because I think Flores is actually a better coach than people think. He was under massive pressure to throw games. I have no doubt that part of his story is true. I think
that happens all around the league.
Absolutely. And it was a barely hidden secret that the Dolphins GM gutted that team to be as atrocious as possible for the first half of the season. Remember, you couldn't bet on the Dolphins first half of the season, no matter how massive the spread was, because of what the GM had done. And Flores just turned that team around despite it. Clearly, I think he was really bitter about that his first coaching gig is undermined because the owner wants to make sure they get Tua in the next draft, which maybe they exaggerated the importance of getting Tua, but they made that team atrocious. I mean, if there was anybody semi-decent with a pulse on that team, there's trade, dump. So I get why he's ticked. He has a legitimate reason to be peeved at being in the middle of all that nonsense, but has nothing to do with race, and it's just playing the political angle. It wouldn't surprise me if Flores believes it. There's a good number of coaches who believe it because they believe the coaching rank should look like the player ranks, which are disproportionately, of course, African-American.
And it makes no sense, Robert. Like I talked about this.
Doesn't come from players.
Yes, it comes from people that have been coaching their entire lives instead of people that were good enough, that were running 4.3, 4.4 40s, that had, 40-inch vertical leaps. The guys who aren't that athletic, they go into coaching. The people who are not good enough to be a player, they start running coffee for, position assistants. They start at the bottom. They grind. They don't sleep. They work 100-hour weeks. They're doing all this stuff to learn how to be a coach, and they continue to rise through the ranks. So it is a different pool than players. And most players, I heard like Darius Butler, I think, talking about this too. He's like, I don't want to start at the bottom. I was making $15 million a year my last year. I don't want to start at the bottom running coffee, sleeping on couches. Yeah, you don't want to do the fucking work. You're entitled. You just want to step in there and get a coaching job, even though you've never fucking done it before. And
plus,
the
skill sets don't correspond.
Yeah.
What makes you a great NFL player will make you a great NFL coach. In fact, often it will not make you a great NFL coach. It will be a hurdle. It'll be a hindrance. It'll be an obstacle, not only because of the success level you've had and the monetary rewards you've had, but because you're going to assume something like, I love Magic Johnson. He was a horrible coach. I mean, he was just a disaster. One of the few great players to be a great coach was Larry Bird. Mm-hmm. And even he wanted out of the league right away. He didn't like doing it long-term. It's the guys who wanted to make it, usually backup quarterbacks and backup defensive backs, who understood the passing game, but did not have the physical skill set. So the only way they even competed at all was to be like a backup offensive lineman, like a John Madden, was to understand the game here. And when you look at the pool of coaches, they look like America. About 90% white, about 8% African American, 9%, somewhere in that ratio. And the coaching ranks have always overrepresented because of the league's nervousness about this player disparity between racial profile of the players and the country.
But it'll never be enough. It'll never be enough. It's never going to be enough. And
Goodell shouldn't have done his BS, semi-apology. There's nothing to apologize for. You made more black millionaires than any league, any institution in American history. Be proud of that. Don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah, I mean, and the more that they try to explain it, I guess it's the worst thing you can do, because it, like you said, it does kind of represent America, which again, that's reality. And we're not dealing with people that worry about reality. They just worry about being fake victims and all this nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, ask Joe Rogan how his apology tour is working out for him.
Not very well so far. Not very well.
But from the NFL's standpoint, I think what they are worried about is they want to make sure this lawsuit doesn't go forward at all in any way. Because what they don't want is any sort of discovery. They don't want one single email coming out. We saw what they did with John Gruden and the Washington football team, all that stuff. They don't want one single thing coming out, a note that was scrawled by an executive that may have been offensive. Like, they don't want a single damn thing from that. So I think,
what is true is some of the owners, probably not all the most racially progressive people on the planet.
But you know what? I guarantee those damn owners care more about money than about having a black head coach. I brought up the example, Donald Sterling, who's calling Magic Johnson the N-word, right?
Yep.
He hired Doc Rivers because he wanted to win.
Exactly.
Like, that's the bottom line. These guys care about money. And if a black coach can get them there, if a black GM can get them there, that's what they are going to do at the end of the day.
Yep.
So the entire thing is ridiculous. But gentlemen, we're going to get to super chats in a little bit. You guys are freaking blowing it up. That is amazing. We will read all these super chats, but we got to talk about a big game coming up. Again, not the Pro Bowl. That happened. Whatever. Nobody gives a shit.
I did not watch the Pro Bowl.
I like the competition stuff they do. I think they should just scrap the game. Don't do the game. Just do the fun little competitions of guys making
the punt, pass, kick competition. Yeah,
all that.
Yep.
Yeah. But the Super Bowl is coming up, and it's kind of been overshadowed a little bit by Brian Flores being a bitch and by everyone leaking that Tom Brady was retired.
The legend stepping down.
Yeah. So, in the week plus since this has happened, there's been a lot going on that has nothing to do with the game that's about to be played on the field. But for me, even though it's not the sexiest matchup, I love this matchup because I win either way. I really like what the Bengals are doing and have been doing in building. That got a young head coach who I think is interesting and exciting. And then the Rams, I like McVay, and I love the idea that Matthew Stafford finally escapes from Detroit, gets some pieces, and immediately gets them to a Super Bowl. Jeremy, what's your instincts on this game? What are you going to be looking for in this game, and who do you want to win?
I think it's weird because usually you have a team or a player that the majority of people are going to focus on, whether they're pulling against them or pulling for them. I don't think you have that in this situation. You've got a veteran who has struggled to get there, and the first time he gets out of Detroit, he gets on a team and they go to the Super Bowl. A veteran that I wouldn't say Matthew Stafford is like a mega fan favorite. He's a respected guy, though. You know what I mean? He's just a guy that a lot of people respect, and they always thought, like, hey, if this guy got in a better situation, he could probably do something, and he's maximized that opportunity. But then you have who, in my opinion, will be the future of the league, and Joe Burrow. And I think Joe Burrow has megastar written all over him. I think if Joe Burrow can come in here and win this game, I think he's going to be it. It's going to put him on a path to be the guy for the next 10, 12 years. But you don't have this, like, there's no big thing about, like, let's pull against Tom Brady or let's pull for Tom Brady. Let's pull for Patrick Mahomes. There's not really that. There's not a vested interest outside of the small, little, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to like the Bengals or the Rams, but I'm just saying in terms of their respective fan bases, you don't have this overwhelming standpoint from the country. So I think, like you said, we all kind of went. I have no vested interest in either one of these guys in terms of, I don't care either way, but ultimately I'm picking the Bengals just because I think that they have all the momentum, and I think Joe Burrow is big time. I watched him do it in college, and coming off the injury from last year and bouncing back this year and doing what he's doing, surrounded by all the talent, I think we're in store for a good game. I think it's going to be a very good game. It's going to go into the fourth quarter, but I'm picking Joe Burrow and the Bengals to hoist the trophy, which is going to be insane if that happens. So, and I like that it's happening at SoFi because I just think that place is incredible. It's just, it changes the game. You know what I mean? It feels futuristic. It's crazy. So I like that it's happening there. So I think from a presentation standpoint, it's going to be awesome. We'll get to see Governor Newsom standing around without a mask while everyone else has one on. So that'll be good for our personal channels. We can roast him on that. But yeah, it's a weird Super Bowl, but in a good way.
I implore Gavin Newsom to hold his breath as long as he possibly can. What about you, Robert? I think this is an interesting one for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it's the biggest betting event of the year. So the single best betting, it's bet more than anything in the United States, than anything that occurs around the world. Only the World Cup final trumps the Super Bowl, and that only happens once every 4 years, whereas this happens every year. You have at least 500 betting opportunities of individual prop bets of things to happen in the game. So, you have the you have the probability of winning and the money and the spread and the totals. But you can bet first quarter, first half. You can bet first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. You can bet, any combination of bets. You can bet receiving yards, receptions, rushes, rushing yards. Who's going to score the first touchdown? Whether someone's going to score 2 or more touchdowns. Whether the same. What the MVP combination is going to be. I mean, it's literally, I think we'll probably end up having 1,000 different prop betting opportunities because as sports betting keeps expanding, the options in order to be competitive, your DraftKings and your FanDuel along with Caesars here. I mean, Caesars has never offered this many prop bets. It used to be the Westgate, which before that was the Las Vegas Hilton. The Superbook had the most prop bets. Now it's going to have the lowest number of prop bets probably in Vegas compared to Caesars, compared to Circa, and then definitely compared to FanDuel and DraftKings. So you can bet on every kind of player, every kind of points, every kind of odds. If you're a gambling addict, this is the ultimate feed. So it's going to be, you can bet on, and if you're betting, there'll be live bets where you can bet on the next play, whether it's a rushing play. It'll be Hunter Thompson style. That's how he used to do it.
That's awesome.
Everybody would stand around, bet a quarter. Is he going to run it, get a pass it, get a first down, not get a first down, going to score on this drive, not score on this drive? The overarching assumptions are that it's going to be a 25-22 kind of game. And that's because the arguments for the under the 48 total, 48 to 48.5, depending on where you're getting it right now, is the last 3 Super Bowls have gone under. 5 of the 6 playoff games involving these 2 teams have gone under. And both teams' defenses play the schematic style that give these opposing quarterbacks problems. Stafford has been interception happy against cover 2 schemes. The Bengals run a lot of cover 2 schemes. That's what threw off Mahomes in the second half. He just couldn't be patient enough to continue to make some of the miracle plays he made in the first half. And Stafford has thrown a lot of picks against this style. Now, he still gets big plays against it, but he's thrown a lot of picks. Same with Burrow. The only kind of defense that's given Burrow trouble has been a heavy zone cover 2 defense. For those who don't know, cover 2, the safeties are back, old Tampa style defense.
Yeah, you're usually playing man with your corners, and then your 2 safeties are back playing zone on either side of the back of the field there. So yeah,
and both the Rams and the Bengals do that a bunch. Now, probably one of the most underappreciated assistants in all of pro football this year has been the Bengals defensive coordinator. He mixes it up more than anybody in all of pro football this past season. And he'll go cover 2, cover 1, cover 3, cover 4, zone, man. But what he doesn't do is blitz a lot. And that's what Stafford torches. Same with the Rams. They can bring pressure. They have the best defensive line in football. So right now the Rams are favored by 4.5 points. The first half spread is the Rams by 3. The total is 24 for the first half, 48.5 for the game. That's why I say it's about 25-26. They expect the Rams to score, which would be on course. What I think is the biggest misnomer out there, and the Rams are playing at home, but what does that mean in the Super Bowl for the Rams? Not clear how much of a home field advantage they'll have. Though I did hear from my friends in LA, tickets are crazy, like $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 for just real basic tickets. And that's because LA loves Super Bowls, but I'm not sure how big they'll be Rams fans.
They won't
be
be.
a lot of celebrities
Yeah.
saying, "Yeah, I'm here in the Super Bowl. I can.
Yes.
It's easy ticket. I just get my private security. I go up
Yep.
to the suite.
It's the fucking Kardashians. It's like these people that will show up and football. They don't give a shit about the team, right?
Nope.
LA doesn't care. LA doesn't care about either of these teams. They do care about the Rams more than the Chargers. I know that for
Because
a fact.
Rams used to play in LA. For those that don't remember, before they were in St. Louis.
Yeah, but overall, it's just not. They have no hardcore devoted fans. I think Cincinnati's going to travel. I think Cincinnati is going to be loud because
First Super Bowl in 30 years.
30
and
years.
that was one of the greatest Super Bowls ever. Came down that Joe Montana 92
That was
yard
Boomer.
drive.
That was Boomer versus Montana, right?
Yep,
That
that was.
Boomer Esiason, yeah.
And Sam Weish, great Bengals defense. The dancing running back, the guy who managed to graduate from Auburn with still being functionally illiterate, was quite impressive. I always said, only Auburn can make sure you graduate without you could get a degree and still not know how to read. That's how impressive their football program
SEC
was.
football, baby. That's how we
Brian
talk.
Harsin
That's
is
how we
probably-
talk about each other.
Harsin might be gone before the offseason is over. He's lost 4 coordinators, lost 1 coordinator in a month. Recruiting didn't go great. All kinds of scandal conversations. For those that don't know, there's certain big boosters at Auburn that make Auburn's coaching a hellhole. And it's why it's been a hellhole since the 90s. But that's why even Malzahn, who almost had a winning record against Nick Saban during Nick Saban's greatest era in pro college football, gets fired after 1 bad season. That's Auburn. And they hired an idiot, and they're probably going to get bounced. But that's just a brief side story. But yeah, the 1988, the season that led to that great Super Bowl matchup with Joe Cool coming back and that crazy comeback. And Bengals fans are hardcore. There's not a lot of them, but they're hardcore fans. And it would be, Joe Burrow, the blue-collar kid from the blue-collar town in Southern Ohio, neighboring Cincinnati, winning the Heisman and talking about his hometown in Southern Ohio and doing it for Southern Ohio. It would be a great miracle narrative for Cincinnati fans. And the only reason that narrative isn't bigger in the media is the Cincinnati is such a small media market, and it was so unexpected that everybody was saying in the media that the Kansas City Buffalo game was the AFC Championship. They didn't see the Bengals coming. This was
which is stupid. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs in week 16 or whatever. And Joe Burrow's just continued to get better. And they're the underdogs in this game. I think it was 4 or 5 point spread somewhere around there.
That works perfectly for them to be the underdog too. That falls right into the narrative that they've worked off of. They don't need to be favored. They're the blue collar team that no one seems to believe in. So that them not being favored is perfect for them. So, and I think it's still going to, I think Ryan's right. They're going to travel well. I think these fans are going to come in there and be loud as hell. There's no passion for the Rams. Yes, there's passion for celebrities to be celebrities, and they'll be there, but there's no passion for the Rams. There's a ton of passion for the Bengals, and it's 30 years in the making. And not only that, this feels like if they can win this game, this feels like they could be, making their own potential dynasty, surrounded by Joe Burrow and this incredible team. So this win means a lot for the moment, but it also means a lot for the future. This is a lot of implications for the Bengals, and I think the Bengals fans can feel that. So that's another element to it.
I mean, other than the Eagles, Doug Peterson with a backup quarterback upsetting the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. But that was Philly, who had been had been knocking on the Super Bowl door for a better part of a decade, mostly with Andy Reid. But but it was still a shock because he took a backup quarterback and managed to beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. But otherwise, in terms of long-term legacy, this would be one of the biggest upset stories in the history of the Super Bowl.
Well, if you go back to that one, I think it would have been better if Carson Wentz would have been in that game and been the quarterback. It would have felt like we're building something for the future instead of Nick being there. Big Dick Nick. That's the only thing I can call him because of Barstool, because they always call him Big Dick Nick.
Big Dick fucking third in the depth chart now. One of the Bears' 3 mediocre quarterbacks.
It tells you something about Peterson's ability. Because even Wentz has not looked that great, even with Frank Reich, who's done a lot of magic with quarterbacks over the years. Himself a great backup quarterback, originally had the biggest comeback in history of both college football and pro football. Really a magic maker with what he can do with quarterbacks. And Wentz looked mostly average this year and couldn't win the big one against Jacksonville, no less. And so it tells you something about Peterson. I think finally Jacksonville has a real coach. I think that was a smart hire. I think he'll do well with Lawrence. I mean, if he could do that with Carson Wentz, where people were talking about him being a top 5 caliber quarterback and MVP candidate one year, so on and so forth, imagine what he could do with someone who has the natural talent of Trevor Lawrence. I think that will be interesting to witness. But yeah, I think the surprise part, the reason why smart money is on the under is because of some of those historic factors, but the main one is the defensive matchup. I will probably be on the over because the last 8 times there has been 2 top 10 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, and the total's been under 50. It's gone over 7 of the 8 times. And then the same with underdogs. The reason why I lean towards the Bengals definitely on the first half spread is because the last, despite getting burned by that in the Kansas City AFC Championship game, Bengals decided to wait till the second half again to show up. But is historically when you have 2 top 10 quarterbacks play each other in the Super Bowl in the modern era, in the modern era of protecting quarterbacks and illegal contact downfield, all the rules that elevated quarterback dominance in the NFL, the underdog has covered a lot more often than not. And my last 10 Super Bowl picks have been winners. So we'll be on the spread. So we'll see if that trend continues. A little nervous about the game being in LA and a little nervous about the coaching matchup. I think McVay really, really wants this after losing it to New England. And so maybe he'll come out with an exceptional game plan. And the Bengals, and against McVay, you better not play the first half behind comeback second half routine, because other than the 49ers game earlier this year, McVay has never lost when leading at halftime.
Yeah, and I think that I think the pressure is on the Rams. It's not a ton because, again, they've never won. They were there. Stafford just got there, but they did bring in pieces like Von Miller and Odell Beckham and all this stuff. They put a lot on this season here. And the pressure's on them, especially with it being at home, all of that stuff. The Bengals have nothing to lose. Joe Burrow doesn't give a fuck about anything. So he's the guy you want on the other side there.
Yeah, I'd say the big difference between this Super Bowl and the last time Bengals were in there is that this time Joe Cool is on the Bengals roster. Yeah. And it would not surprise me to see him the guy just doesn't get rattled no matter where he's at. I mean, to be first year in the playoffs, go on the road, back-to-back games against the Titans and then the Chiefs, get behind at different times or be under the gun against the Titans and then really under the gun, way behind, 18 points behind against the Chiefs and come back like it's nothing. And he never looked rattled, not for a second in that game. When he was getting sacked almost 9 times in the Titans game, or he was sacked 9 times, never rattled, just got back up, no problem. And when he had Chiefs bouncing around him, because the big mismatch in this game, there is really only, I think receivers, Cooper Kupp has had a ridiculous year, but Jamar Chase is probably the future. So I think you got 2 guys that are going to be Hall of Fame wide receivers down the road. Mm. They both have solid but injured tight ends coming off of an injury from the championship games. Both have solid number 2s and number 3s with Beckham and Van Jefferson on the Rams side, and with T. Higgins, who was a number 1 guy just last year. I mean, it's only because of Jamar Chase's greatness that people have kind of forgot how good T. Higgins has been, even though he was great in the title.
He has overshadowed him a lot this year. He's overshadowed him.
I mean, one of the great Clemson wide receivers in their long litany of great number 1 wide receivers for a while. Yep. Good solid running backs with Mixon and Akers. But the big mismatch is the right side of the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line against the LA Rams defensive line. It looks worse than the Tampa Bay Kansas City matchup last year. The Pro Football Focus rated the right side of the offensive line out of a possible 100. One of them was rated 0.1 and the other one was rated 1.8 based on their performance against the Chiefs. And now they're going up against Aaron Donald,
Von Miller.
And you're going up against 2 of the greatest defensive pass rushers in the history of the game.
Well, Aaron Donald that's one thing too. Aaron Donald is the best player on the football field every time he steps on the football field, just about every time. And he's going to have a lot of fun with that offensive line. That's going to be the big challenge. That's where, I mean, I know a lot of people just look for the big passes, big runs, great defense plays. The battle will be in the trenches. And if Aaron Donald, I don't know how they stop him, because now the Von Miller out there on the outside too, I really don't know. But
they've got to
they've got
to scheme the way the 49ers scheme, because the most successful offensive line the last 3 seasons against Aaron Donald has been the 49ers. And it's because now partially they had a lot more offensive line talent than the Bengals have. on the right side of the line, well, from the center all the way forward. I mean, center to right tackle are ranked in the bottom 5 of the league at their position for the Bengals. So they've got a scheme. This will show how good is this Bengals coach, because there's doubt in Cincinnati because of his early seasons, whether this is Joe Burrow's resurrection of the Bengals or the coach has figured things out better than he did earlier in his career. This will prove it. How does he scheme to handle those great pass from the number 1 defensive line by far statistically in the league, and the number 1 defensive player, and maybe the number 1 player in all of the league? How do they handle? And Donald showed at the end when he made that great play to cause that last interception to kill the 49ers comeback. I was hoping the Rams would take it in because I had the Rams 3-0 hook, unfortunately. But the guy went the wrong angle. But the showed he was passionate. He was committed. He was looking like Reggie White with the Packers, obsessed with getting a title, Super Bowl title. So that will prove how good the Bengals coach is. If they come up with an effective scheme to keep Aaron Donald out of the backfield and Von Miller out of the backfield, then that will be one of the greatest coaching jobs. It'll be equal to what Belichick did to McVay in the Super Bowl several years ago.
Yeah, I think that what they're going to have to do is, I think they did a good job against the Chiefs. They committed to the run. Even when it wasn't super effective, they committed to the run, which is important. I think they got to throw some draw plays and stuff like that in there as well. Even in predictable passing downs, if you have a 2nd and 9, maybe throw a draw in there, get it to 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, and be okay with that. And we know Joe Burrow and that offense, they like to go deep. They like to get up these chunk plays. But in this case, you have to throw in some screens. You have to throw in some slants over the middle for short yardage. That's the only way I think they're going to be able to do it. But it's going to be an awesome game. I cannot wait. A lot of people are looking forward to this.
It's going to be a really good game.
Yeah. Let's get to a couple of these super chats, and then we got to talk about Kyler Murray, because there's some Kyler Murray drama going on today.
Yeah, there is.
Sounds like Kyler Murray isn't super committed. Oh, who would have thought that after his Dan Patrick interview? Connor Akers for 2. Did you guys ever watch arena football? Never really consistently. I caught one here or there, but
if they'll bring Tebow, I'll watch.
God, imagine Tim Tebow when the timing that he has to throw is even smaller. Like his wind up, there'll be people that are in the end zone before he finishes wind up.
Tebow could do it. Tebow could do it.
Outkick, guess who they listed as their 5th possible candidate to replace Tom Brady at Tampa Bay?
Who?
Tim Tebow.
Yeah! Woo!
What fucking idiot wrote that?
Woo! Somebody knows what's going on. Somebody knows what's going on.
God, he should be unlisted, but you could put him on there at the end. Connor Akers for 2. The Barnes Firm jingle is stuck in my head. Thank you, Connor.
By the way, you and Viva, man. Oh my gosh, what's been going on with that? Your live streams. I mean, it's been incredible seeing what.
I think Viva has almost 500,000 views for today's Ottawa interview. He's a natural interviewer.
Yeah,
he had 20. He's such a nice guy. You know what I mean? So he can talk to anybody, and a lot of people are obviously interested in that story. So it's awesome to see that shit.
It really is.
Pee Wee Pierre for 5 says, my Tom Brady take it may be bad, but I don't kiss my son on the lips. More like I won't kiss my son on the lips when I have one. TB13 should finish strong.
Well, see, that's the classic Brady hater. You can't talk about anything on the field, so you got to bring memes into it. That just shows you Brady is the GOAT.
Favorite fact about Tom Brady is that he's 34-7 against all the quarterbacks in the league with a winning record in the playoffs, aside from 2 quarterbacks that he's faced multiple times. Who are those 2 quarterbacks?
The 2 Mannings.
Yes, indeed.
Yep. The 2 Mannings. Those are the only ones he ever really had. I mean, obviously he lost to Eli twice, so that doesn't help.
It's so
he was
crazy.
A favorite, I think, in all but one of those games.
Mm-hmm. It's so crazy that he struggled so much with Denver historically and Miami.
Yep.
Like if you look at, he played.
Miami had like a curse. They'd go down there.
Yeah.
Late in the year. Didn't matter how bad Miami was. He'd have a bad game and they'd lose.
Yeah.
But I think he probably made the right decision for him. He was clearly just kind of done. I think he thought it would take 2 years to win a Super Bowl. And when he won it the first year, I think he was surprised by that. He was like, well, I might as well come back. But he clearly, the way he was acting in some interviews at the end, he just didn't have the passion to keep going, and no one will ever see a bad Tom Brady. I think it's a mistake when Favre went too long and when When Marino went too long and some other guys went too long, even
Peyton,
Montana kind of went too long.
Peyton got lucky, even though he wasn't Peyton Manning that last year. He's lucky that the team they won the Super Bowl, so it didn't put a stain on his.
Get out as soon as he realized he didn't have it. Brady got out before he didn't have it, so no one will ever see a bad Tom Brady on the field.
I think that the reason he did this isn't so much because he thinks that he will fall, fail next season or his body will start leaving him.
Yeah, no.
I think it's because he doesn't have confidence in the team. I think he doesn't think that they'll be able to reload and be able to get all that talent. So I don't think he thinks that team next year will be able to win.
Right.
I think that had a big impact on his decision. If he thought that they were going to reload and keep everybody together, I think he'd give it another shot.
I'm pretty sure that Antonio Brown thing probably hit him the wrong way too. I mean, he did a lot for Antonio Brown.
If you want to see Antonio Brown around the time of the Super Bowl, he'll be out here hosting Floyd Mayweather's strip club.
Really?
Really, that's legit. I'm not making that up. That's on the Instagram post. I follow Floyd on Instagram, and Antonio Brown is hosting the strip club for a week.
Oh my God!
Still hasn't had that surgery, huh? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, exactly.
His ankle is just in such pain. I can't do anything, coach. Don't put me in, coach. Literally doing Michael Jackson toe stands for a music video the next week. What a bitch. Antonio Brown's a fucking lying crazy sack of shit.
He really went nuts. He went, which is too bad. He was one of the greatest receivers in history. But receivers are like pitchers. They've always been a little off. But he clearly the Steelers were right to get rid of him because he had lost it mentally.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to think, I said that Jeremy brings it up all the time that we never gave Mike Tomlin enough credit for how he controlled Antonio Brown and kept that whole situation kind of very manageable until the end.
Yes.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. I always felt like Tomlin.
He's not a good coach, but he's a great talent manager.
Yeah, and I always felt like he was a little too loosey-goosey, but in reality, no. Like he was giving as much leeway as you possibly could by keeping a great talent, but until it just got to the point where it just couldn't be managed anymore. He did the best job that anybody did to coaching Antonio Brown. He just did. And
I mean, what his great skill set is talent management. It's not in-game planning, because if you make the mistake of betting on him against Belichick, good luck with that. But if you bet on, there's a reason why he's still in the league all these years and has winning or regular, I think one losing season, maybe none. And it's because he knows how to manage players and talent. And in reality, in the modern NFL, that's 80% of the game. The 20% is how much you can do in-game, out-game strategy, which Belichick has managed to do both pretty well. Though it was a little unusual that Tom Brady failed to mention New England initially in his retirement statement, but he kind of
thought it was very specific.
I was like,
I thought it was very specific. I thought there was
it
was very.
That was a reminder. It was me, folks, not him.
That's right.
Yeah, I didn't see it as much as everybody else did. I feel like he gave a pretty big goodbye to the Patriots when he left.
Later on. Yes.
No.
He means when he left. When he left
2 years ago,
right,
he gave a pretty good one. So I think he may have wanted to keep this one specific towards what has happened in the last little bit.
Yeah,
I think
but
this is huge. Like
pages, 9 pages, and he didn't mention New England. That's a lot.
That was. I think that was an initial hit, and then he was going to backtrack, and he just wanted to make a little point, and then he would do a special little New England thing later and acted like it was no big deal. But clearly, I think he wanted to retire there. I think he wanted to be the head honcho, and the reality is Belichick went out at the end as to who was going to do what. I think he was never happy about the Jimmy G thing. And I think it showed up at the end, and I think he was just reminding people of that in his initial omission without being over the top about it, not being critical or negative. But how do you are a New England Patriot. Yeah, Tampa, you were there 2 years. God bless. You're a New England Patriot, and you don't mention them in your initial retirement statement?
I think that I would have seen a lot more there if it had been like, thank you to the fans, thank you to Bob Kraft, and that was it. And like he didn't say anything about Belichick.
That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, but then Belichick puts out a big statement. So
it's not deeply personal. It's just a little bit, because he thinks, I would have helped lead this, do what I wanted, and New England would have had another Super Bowl. Instead, you went with Belichick, and you haven't even won a playoff game yet.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's true.
I do think they dislike each other. Like not completely dislike, but
I think they respect each other, but they think they were the reason. And Brady kind of won that debate.
Yep. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Chris Coran for 5. Stop teasing me, Jeremy. The division's going to be easy. Let's fucking go.
Well, yeah, just right before you got here, Barnes, I said my bold prediction is Brady hasn't played his last game. That's my bold prediction.
Oh, you think he'll come back for a few more?
I just
wait till the playoffs, and some team needs they're only a quarterback away from a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think that'll happen. I think it'll be a beginning of the season if he does.
Oh, really? I think he's done.
Yeah, and he very well may be, but it's just the guy made the decision to retire like a week after he should have been playing a game. You know what I mean? Like in the playoffs, and they became a bad defensive play away from being in the playoffs to the championship game. So led the league in passing touchdowns, led the league in yards, arguably the MVP right there with Aaron Rodgers, and no signs of slowing down. Like, he doesn't seem like he's peaking. It just does. You watch him and he doesn't. He seems like he can do this for 3 or 4 more years at a high level, at least another one. But this is a dude that's been there for 22 years. And I think that he made a knee-jerk reaction based on family, which is totally understandable. But it's a bold prediction. So clearly I'm not saying it's going to happen, but my bold prediction is that he's going to rethink it. And, we'll see him again next year. So, and I think it will be with pull a Favre. You know what I mean? He doesn't seem like the guy that's that indecisive, but it's just like anything else. As someone that's followed Brady all of these years, I didn't think he would leave New England. I was very shocked when he left New England. I was very surprised at that decision. I did not see that coming. I'm happy about it, but I didn't think it would happen. So yeah, we'll see how it all plays out over the next.
If he comes back, somebody gives him partial ownership in the team as part of the deal. Michael Jordan, Charlotte style.
Maybe. I would not be surprised if he took a year off and was like, fuck, I can do that. I can do this. I could be
being
there.
With Giselle every day really is.
Yeah, you're fucking annoying. I don't like that fucking accent anymore. God damn it. You know what I mean? I think that's a possibility.
I don't think
it's like a 49ers or something like that. I don't know.
I don't think a lot of people would be bored with Giselle every day, but maybe Tom would.
Yeah, he managed to hold off retiring for 20 fucking years. So
that's
you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think Tom's built different, and he made a decision quick. He didn't go out on his own terms. It all got leaked. Like, I think that plays a role in it too. The fact that Adam Schefter once again, broke someone's retirement before they were ready to announce it, like Andrew Luck. I think all that could play a role. If I were betting, I'd say he's done, but I don't think it's out of the question. Matrix and Roadshow for 5. Check out Mediate. I really like Mediate. Stephen A. Smith doesn't believe Mike McDaniel is black enough to get the Dolphins job. I called it. What? All right, hold on. Let me look up Mediate.
This is the nonsense. This is the nonsense with identity politics. When you are viewing the world through race and gender, you are already losing. It's such a ridiculous take.
Well, now you have to be what Wesley Snipes black? I mean,
I know. Like,
Wes used to put it that way. He's like, there's black, then there's Wesley Snipes black. But it's like, at what level do you have to get to in order for? I mean, Stephen A. Smith isn't Wesley Snipes black.
Stephen A. Smith isn't impressed by the NFL hiring a multiracial head coach. This was a conversation about black men.
He's black. He's a black and he's a male. Now, he's not like color black, but he's racially, ancestrally, by ethnicity, by DNA. He is part black. He's multiracial.
Yep, he's mixed race. The NFL has a clear diversity problem among its head coaches, according to Stephen A. Smith. And the Miami Dolphins hiring a multiracial candidate didn't do much to help. We know Brian Flores was fired, all of that stuff. Although McDaniel's a minority candidate, Smith made sure to note that he doesn't believe the Dolphins hire helps fix the NFL's head coaching issue. That's how he identifies as multiracial. Okay, fine. This was a conversation last week about black men not getting jobs in the NFL Football League as head coaches. I'm not knocking him. I wish nothing but the best. What I'm saying is the conversation last week pertaining to the Brian Flores situation is the scarcity of black men who have been given opportunities to be head coaches in the National Football League. Does not count. How black do you need to be, Stephen A? You're not even really as black as Michael Irvin. Do you count?
No, So I'm saying
Yep,
he's not on the
exactly.
Wesley Snipes side of the color ledger, if that's the standard to bear. I met Stephen A. Smith in Vegas once. It was when he was out here for that UFC fight, and he was so bad. I mean, Rogan was going crazy because he's like, Smith doesn't understand anything about fighting. He's like, this
Ooh,
guy's
yeah.
just an idiot, just a total imbecile. And this was before Rogan's current controversy of using N with an A, which is different than N with a hard R. But that's suddenly become controversial, which is interesting to me, particularly in, especially Spotify, given the number of songs they have with the N word in it. N with an A, granted, which is, that's culturally okay within parts of the community. And, it's not like nobody thought Rogan was being racist when the way he was using the term ever during any of those episodes.
It's talking about, some of them are discussions with black men about that word. He's like, so if someone comes up to you and says this word, like, this is such a different word than anything else in society. Like, that's the conversations that Joe Rogan was having. Now, enough conversation with Stephen A. Smith one-on-one might be enough to let one slip, I suppose, if you're Joe Rogan. But that's not what happened.
Well, Smith is always trying to do that locution. He's trying to sound more intellectual than he is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, this is all an extortionate scheme to force the league to put in a bunch more power. And next will be GMs.
Ownership. Ownership is next. They've already declared it. They said all these black players, they said because the Rooney Rule applies to GMs now too. They said we need change at the ownership level. That's the only way this will happen. So what are they going to do? Are they going to mandate that a black person be part of every ownership group from now? I wouldn't put it past them, but they don't come up every so often.
I mean, it's an old grift, extortionate leverage to guilt trip a league that feels obligated because of its player profiles to put more black faces in positions of power. And the truth of the matter, I mean, there's plenty. And the other thing was, if Flores wouldn't have done this, Flores might have got a job anyway. Raheem Morris was going to be up for a job. There were going to be out of these 6-7 open positions, probably almost half are going to be filled by black head coaches anyway. Now they're going to, everybody who gets a job now, even Lovie Smith, there's going to be a little bit. They had to hire a black man for the position. It undermines the quality and credibility of those coaches, is all he's done. This extortionate strategy may temporarily work, but long-term is a bad idea because they keep forgetting this is a 90% white fan base. And, that's the problem that they're in a little bit of delusional land with. The NBA has a much more liberal fan base and could get away with, and even them have been financially crushed by their politicized behavior. They saw what happens when you decide to go with the wokesters is the NFL took a 20% hit and was taking it in consecutive seasons. And then they quit doing it politically finally. Re-engaging in this is just going to antagonize the fan base. And they've already lost a portion of fans, probably 10% of fans, who will never come back. Baseball did that in the early 90s. That's why they had to juice everybody up to hit home runs. They had to get them back into the stands, back watching on TV. And they got enough of them back, but there were some that never came back. And this is foolishness on the league's part. They should learn not to be political. Don't play racial politics. Don't give in or capitulate to racial politics. John Elway came out and said what Flores said about Denver were just flat out lies. I trust John Elway. So on that side of the equation, I think no one look at Flores the same, even though he was probably, given what talent he had, one of the better coaches in the league the last 3 years.
If I would not doubt that John Elway may have gone out and partied and drank, to be honest with you. However, it had nothing to do with race, even if it did happen. Brian Flores is a sack of shit. What were you going to say, Jeremy?
No, I was trying to find it. Do you guys remember when Stephen A was talking about Hunter Henry and Derek Johnson and completely had no idea what he's talking about? Y'all remember that?
When he thought they were on the team or whatever?
Yeah, here I think I found a clip of. I think I found a clip of it right here because this is what Stephen A does. He just spews off a bunch of stuff like right here.
Where Ryan Clark is like looking puzzled.
No, it's Teddy Brewski. Teddy Brewski's like, what the hell?
And I'm going to have some faith in Spencer Ware and thinking that he can do some things. I'm keeping my eyes on this matchup right here.
Spencer Ware's out.
I'm sorry.
Spencer Ware is out.
Oh yes, I forgot. I'm sorry. Absolutely, he is out. But I'm thinking Tyreek Hill. I'm thinking Patrick Mahomes. I'm also looking at the San Diego Chargers on offense, and I'm thinking about Hunter Henry and the way that he's played this year and as effective as he's been. He's going up against Derek Johnson.
Look at Brewski. Brewski's like, wait, what? Hang on.
And I got eyes on that because I'm looking at it from the standpoint. Listen, here's where I'm at with all of this. At the end of the day, I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes. I'm looking at Tyreek Hill.
And that is the
Oh, so good, dude. It's so good.
That was classic. And the UFC was the worst at it. I mean, Rogan was just going stir crazy. Listen to Smith not have obviously any clue what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Having no, I mean, if we sat down and said, Lee, let's talk about Von Bell and Eli Apple and their transition and the Bengals, he would have no idea in prep for the Super Bowl. I mean, one of the keys the Bengals defense did is they took some guys that had struggled in some schemes, put them in their scheme, and really excelled this year. They took some guys that had been sporadically elite and then sometimes looked like a bust, like Eli Apple. And this year, the passer rating against him, he's one of the top corners in the league. And it's because he works much better in a zone-oriented defense that's heavy zone. And Von Bell has been outlandishly good, very underappreciated for the Bengals. He single-handedly helps their run defense. Because usually a cover 2 scheme is very vulnerable to a team running right at him because your linebackers are back, your safeties are back, your corners are out. And Von Bell single-handedly frequently makes that difference. Stephen A. Smith couldn't comment on any of that. He had some old notes, and he just went off. And then you see when he got into trouble, he would fall back on, well, I know Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill are there. Those two guys could save me in case I'm wrong about everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, check this out. We've got a statement from Brian Flores' attorney on the hiring of Lovie Smith. Here we go. Right here. So after the Texans announced they hired Lovie Smith today, Brian Flores' attorneys released this statement.
2 white men.
So yeah, Mr. Flores is happy to hear that the Texans have hired a black head coach, Lovie Smith, as Flores' goals in bringing his case is to provide real opportunities for black and minority candidates to be considered for coaching and executive positions with the NFL. So how does he feel about Miami's latest hire? Did we get a press release on that one? I'm just curious. Maybe he's not black enough. Maybe that's why maybe he supported Joe Biden because, you ain't black. So
he planned on adding the Texans to the lawsuit, and it's tough to do when Lovie Smith is the guy hired. That's what they're really saying here. Well, saying he was still racially discriminated against, even though a black head coach was picked.
Well, look at the rest of this statement. However, we would be remiss not to mention that Mr. Flores was one of the 3 finalists. And after a great interview and mutual interest, it's obvious the only reason Mr. Flores was not selected was his decision to stand up against racial equality across the NFL. Lovie Smith has been a head coach 2 times. Lovie Smith has taken a team to the Super Bowl. Lovie Smith is far more experienced than you are, Brian Flores.
Yep.
You know what? I know their new angle is going to be it's not race discrimination, it's retaliation for filing suit and exposing race discrimination. That's going to be their new legal claim against the NFL.
Right?
Because they don't have a race discrimination claim.
That is disrespect. Completely complete slap in the face to a person who has coached twice in this league, as Ryan said, taking him to the Super Bowl, and for the disrespect that you just gave this man. That's pure bullshit right there. That just shows you everything that Flores is all about right there. Sounds like a guy that would probably tell Tua to his face that I made a mistake and I should have gotten Mac Jones. Sounds like that type of guy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's these kind of aggressive, accelerating comments. He's going to Colin Kaepernick himself.
Yes.
Though the real reason Kaepernick didn't get a chance is he couldn't hit the right side of a barn. Harbaugh made him look temporarily good. He was not good at Nevada, didn't have above a 60% completion rate until his senior season. And Nevada they weren't playing SEC defenses each week. He was a disaster initially with San Francisco. Harbaugh came in and created a scheme that hid his obvious weaknesses. And then finally the league in year 3 caught up to what those weaknesses are. And all of a sudden he had, I think, the second lowest net yards per attempt of any quarterback in the league at the time. What is smart now for Kaepernick? It turned out to be smart. He knew he was going to be out of the league in a year.
100%.
He did the right thing. So what do I do? Oh yeah, I'm
play the victim. Play the victim.
I'm against the man.
I'll be honest,
play
that. I bought into Kaepernick. Like I remember his games against Green Bay. There were moments there he was incredible, and I didn't go full like Yeah, I didn't go full Ron Jaworski saying he was going to be the greatest football player to ever live. But I liked Colin Kaepernick when he was, in the league. I thought he offered a lot, and he really did. I mean, he was kind of a freak of nature with his talent, and his ability to run and throw. I bought into it. Specifically, there was one I think it was it wasn't the record-breaking Green Bay game or the Green Bay game that everybody talks about. It wasn't that one, but it was another one where they were in the red zone and he ran out of bounds and he got hit. It was a borderline late hit. And one of his offensive linemen comes up and just, goes after the guy that hit him. And Kaepernick grabbed his offensive lineman's jersey and yanked him back so he wouldn't get a penalty. I was like, damn, that's leadership. And ultimately what happens in any situation is you're always going to have things like, oh, you're going to benefit from this, you're going to benefit from that, but you can learn to overcome things. But Colin Kaepernick didn't want to do the work to build himself back up. Harbaugh covered up a lot of his weaknesses, and instead of applying himself and learning, he just took the easy way out to become a fake victim. And it worked out great for him. Congrats on that one, Colin Kaepernick.
And that's what Brian Flores is doing. He realizes that with the bridges he's burnt, being the asshole it is, and I think this is a problem in general with the Bill Belichick pipeline. I think all these guys try to be Bill Belichick and think they can be Bill Belichick with the way that he treats everyone and interacts with anyone. You can't be Bill Belichick. Not all of you can. And I think Brian Flores was an asshole, and that reputation got around that he was an asshole. Not that he was an angry black man like he put in his lawsuit, but just there's a problem with him. And he knew he was either going to be, a coordinator, maybe never get a chance, or I can take this moment and I can Colin Kaepernick myself. I can be a victim. I can go on all these sports talk radio or sports interviews and do these. It's ridiculous. Brian Flores is a piece of garbage. And Colin Kaepernick, everyone should have realized that by year 3, he could not throw a ball with touch. Literally all it was the same pass over and over and over again.
And that was the genius of Harbaugh. I mean, he could not throw between the hashes with any consistency. It was high risk. And he designed an offense that just had him bootleg, throwing outside the hashes. Using his arm strength as a virtue rather than the vice that it is because he throws too hard without touch down the middle of the field. And once the league's defenses adjust, because they always adjust, the NFL catches on. That's why, Chip Kelly's offense worked for a year, and that was it. Because the NFL has too many quality coaches, too many skilled players for you to be able to scheme your way to any consistency. I mean, once Belichick exposed Sean McVay, he had to ultimately go back to a whole new system and get a whole different quarterback. And this year they haven't been a run-heavy offense. And the reason is because the league adjusted. They're constantly adjusting. Scheme will only get you so far. The genius of Belichick was his ability to constantly adjust again and adjust again and adjust. As the league adjusted, he adjusted. The league adjusted, and he was always one step ahead. Maybe sometimes with the rule book, one step ahead, but that's another story. I think Flores had great potential as a coach. I think he's completely blowing it by doing this. He thinks he's grandstanding and winning. I don't think he'll get a Colin Kaepernick big Nike deal out of this, so it's not going to pay off like it did for Kaepernick. And I think he had potential as a coach that he's just burning bridge after bridge. What GM? What GM wants to hire him now? It was like, if he gets pissed, he'll rat everybody out on everything.
Exactly. And, if you can't fire him. If you hire him now, you can never fire him because he'll scream racism like the bitch that he is. Fuck Brian Flores.
And he knows down deep that that's BS. But it's sad that he's become so embittered by all of this. The other thing, but your good point on the Belichick coaching tree, unlike Paul Brown, unlike some other of the great head coaches in the history of the league, the great 49ers pedigree, you look at that. Andy Reid was off that coaching tree. Mike Holmgren was off that coaching tree. Yeah, one after the other. Yeah. And you can make some arguments for Bill Parcells, some of Bill Parcells' coaching tree. You look at Belichick's coaching tree, it's kind of like Saban's coaching tree. The coaches that have been successful were great coaches before they coached for Saban. Kirby Smart had success before Saban. Jimbo Fisher had tons of success before Saban. Almost everybody else off Saban's tree, which is a lot like Belichick's style, haven't really been that great. And they try to, and part of the reason is what you identified, they try to imitate Belichick when that's not who they are. Or what they are. You look at Josh.
You can't do that out of the gate. You know, you can't, like, Bill O'Brien comes in and pushes everybody around, gets rid of players that don't agree with him, even if they're great fucking players.
You got to earn
exactly. Josh McDaniel, same thing. It's just over and over
One of
again.
the few exceptions has been the Tennessee head coach, but he was
Vrabel.
a great player long before he was also a brief coach off the coaching. He really wasn't.
He
so much
barely
off
coached for them, though, right?
Yeah,
Like,
barely.
yeah.
So whereas almost everybody else, Charlie Weiss, great offensive mind, you know, had 1 or 2 good years with Notre Dame, then they were terrible. I mean, most of these guys have not translated. Josh McDaniels always sticks out to me, but most of these guys have not translated. The defensive coordinator that was terrible with the Lions, you know, one that became head coach there. It's really not the place to go. And I think that the reason why the Sean McVay type coaching tree derivative off the Shanahan coaching tree works is because what made them unique is they were great offensive minds. It wasn't a specific personality or style you were hiring. It was, these guys have been tutored by some of the greatest offensive minds in pro football. And that's why I think that the Paul Brown and the San Francisco coaching tree worked. That's why I think the Andy Reid coaching tree has shown success. Yeah, Patricia was the debacle at the Lions. That's the defensive coordinator that's about Romeo Crennel didn't really work out as a head coach, you know, long time at the Patriots.
Yeah.
So you want, if you're hiring something smart, hire off of an offensive creative. Like John Madden had been tutored by both players and coaches that were really creative offensively. And that was his genius, and led to one of the highest coaching regular season success rates in the history of the NFL. That's what people should be looking for in hiring coaches, not hiring coaches off of one successful coaching tree, because that by itself has not worked.
Yeah. Jeremy, I know you need to get going. Here's a real quick super chat for you. Tom Brown for 5. Jeremy, I just emailed you about a G.I. Joe comic. Email me back so I can send it to you.
Will do, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to say, so just got a breaking news alert. So I'm reading up on it now. California's indoor mask mandate will end on the 15th. When's the Super Bowl?
That's after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so it's after the Super Bowl. What the?
Yeah, you're right. It's right
dude.
Before it.
Right.
What a stupid. They should have killed it before then. Nobody wants to see a bunch of celebrities with masks on. You got to show the crowd, show the audience.
They're not going to wear it. You know, the celebs won't be wearing them. Yeah, even Magic Johnson, old autoimmune deficient Magic Johnson, he won't wear one.
He's always positive, though. He's always positive. All right. So I do need to wrap it up because I do have a premium stream here in a little while for geeksandgamers.com premium members. So if you guys are premium members, I'll see you in about an hour and 45 minutes. I got to get prepped for that, and then I knock out a couple things too. But thank you for everybody. Sports Wars continuing to grow. Robert, thanks for being here as always. Ryan, you can go fuck yourself just because, you know, that's how we talk to each other. But anyway, thank you, everyone. Have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See ya. Billy Bones for 2. Don't think Trask deserves a shot in terms of the Buccaneers. I don't think Kyle Trask is anything. I was not impressed with him at Florida. I don't know about you, Robert, but
I mean, it's that, you know, the what he did was great with Mullen. The question is that more like Dak Prescott or the other quarterbacks who mostly didn't pan out that Mullen coached? So, you know, Tebow put up great college numbers. Obviously, he was not an NFL quarterback. Now, I don't think Trask has quite the same limitations, but he's not as athletic as Prescott. At times, he could be highly accurate. So it would be interesting. It would, if anybody could do it, Bruce Arians could develop a quarterback. And he got to sit a year watching Tom Brady. But I wouldn't bank on that. I mean, if I were the Tampa Bay with the kind of talent I have at Tampa Bay, and with the head coaching I have at Tampa Bay, I would go out and try to, you know, Aaron Rodgers. I would go for a proven quarterback out there rather than gamble on a rookie. If you're going to go the rookie route, you might as well let a bunch of players go because you're going the rebuild route. Yeah.
Which, with as much as they probably strap their salary cap, re-signing a bunch of these like defensive guys to come back this year, it might be the way they go. I don't know. I don't know if Arians wants to stay around for rebuild either. He's kind of getting up there as well. Hijabi Gamer, what's up, Hijabi Gamer? Unrelated to sports, but I have to say this. Fuck Paramount Plus. Fuck their woke BS Halo series. I hope the studio goes broke. I agree. That looks like garbage. Pee Wee Pierre for 5. Maybe Tom Brady will replace Harbaugh at Michigan. If Brady becomes a coach in the NFL or college and is successful, then I will call him the GOAT. I think you got to separate all that shit.
I think Brady's going to cash in for a good while. I think in 3 to 5 years, I don't think he'll be a commentator. I think he will be out of the public limelight. I think you'll just see him do a lot of advertising deals and make a lot of money while he's still at peak public attention. And then he might go back to coaching, but I'm not sure he wants to do the coaching route. Almost nobody wants to do it in college because recruiting is so tough, particularly at places like Michigan. I mean, you can be in an LSU, a Florida, USC, and you don't have to work that hard to be a great recruiter because all the talent's right there. But Michigan, you got to go into Ohio, you got to go into Illinois, you got to go into the Midwest, you got to go all the way down to Florida, go down to Texas, go into California. It is a brutal, brutal path that a lot of people just don't like and don't want and are not interested. It's a unique personality that wants to be a recruiter, and very few of them are your NFL player personalities.
That's right. Gabriel Knight for 5, off the subject of NFL, but I'm watching the Duke UVA game, and the bias refereeing in favor of Duke is bullshit. Coach K, Duke, and the NCAA suck. I'm looking forward to actually getting into some NCAA basketball now that football season's almost over. My Purdue Boilermakers are having a good season, which I always love to see. They got fucked a couple years ago against Virginia after Carson Edwards had one of the greatest NCAA tournament runs we've really ever seen.
Didn't they steal a game from Tennessee that turning?
They did. Carson Edwards hit a shot from the corner.
Great game.
Was
it double overtime or something?
I think it was. But then the Virginia one, they hit a shot to put him up, and then that one kid with the bleach or orange hair or whatever hit that random floater from the elbow that went in. Yep. It's like, fuck this, man. I just want to see Matt Painter's one of the best coaches in basketball. I really think he is. And Purdue does not get the type of talent that a lot of these other guys get, yet they continue to be successful and overachieve because of Matt Painter. So I really hope I fucking hope he wins one.
And the revolution last 3 to 4 years in college basketball is analytics has led to schematics, which has led to an advantage to experience, such that talent just doesn't dominate. In the last 3 to 4 years, you go back between 97 or so and 2014, 15, you had to have Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, blue blood kind of talent to be in the top, to be a Final Four competitor. Now, not so much. I mean, Baylor probably would have won the title before that. The March Madness, they got canceled. Not a lot of those guys are really NBA guys. And this year, you look at the top 10 teams, half of them don't have a bunch of NBA players on their roster. And I think the analytics has revolutionized college basketball and started to elevate experience over talent, especially with as many one-and-done guys and overseas guys as taken place.
Yeah, well, and the G League stuff. You had a lot of top recruits in the top 15 end up signing with G League. So that's just something that's happening now, which I have not super opposed to that.
Ball Brothers proved that path.
That's
go over
true.
to China, go somewhere else. You can make a lot of money. Why go
steal some money? Yeah, well, especially if you're robbing Chinese businesses, you can make even more money. Exactly. I think that was Leangelo. But thank you for that comment. Getting some of that going. Redbeard for 5,
just a month away.
Yeah, well, this is my favorite time in college basketball. I don't really care about the first 10 to 15 games when it's out of conference, and it's some great matchups, but you also have some dog shit ones. We're now about probably 10 games away for most teams from the end of the regular season, so all the conference, regular season titles are on the line. Then you get into conference tournaments and then March Madness, which is in my opinion, the best weekend in sports is the first weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the NCAA tournament. So,
absolutely.
For bettors, it's awesome, but just for me, it's incredible.
It's like giving an alcoholic, a free buffet of alcohol. I mean, it's just game after game after game after game. You have 4 games going on at the same time, 2 games going on at the same time. It's just tons of adrenaline, tons of action. And because basketball can change so fast, like in football, if a team's down 10 points in the fourth quarter, low chance they come back. Basketball, they can be down 10 points with 3 minutes left, and there's a good chance they come back.
Yeah.
So,
you have kids, like you have these shit teams like your Northern Iowas that are full of, 3rd, 4th, even 5th year guys that have played together for several years, that believe in each other. They're not the most athletic. They're not the best, but they're fundamentally sound. and they're experienced up against these guys who come in to be one and dones, who come in with no plans for the future, who don't have a ton of chemistry, who've only played 30 games with the rest of people there. And so I love seeing it. There's nothing like it in sports.
You have so many upsets. It's fantastic. And just natural drama.
Yeah. Redbeard for 5. Love the stream on Sunday. What do you guys think of Auburn not having any coaches now? Well, actually, Robert talked about that a little bit earlier, so I hope he answered that question, Redbeard. The Greg for 5. Uche fun fact. Brian Flores will have as many lawsuits won as Uche has winning seasons in his entire career. 1. Make UCLA great again. Fire Chip Kelly. Thank you, as always, to Greg. I imagine Brian Flores will probably file another lawsuit before it's all said and done. Redbeard for 5. D-Day, I started a Madden team, found you and Uche on my team. You were a kicker, but I was beaten in franchise mode by Kaepernick. Shaking my head. That is embarrassing. That is very embarrassing, Redbeard. Gabriel Knight for 5. As a Bengals fan, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, but the Bengals front office is incompetent and are always capable of screwing things up. I think they've done a good job of building this team. I think the thing they do in the offseason is shore up the offensive line, and then you're set for a year or two.
I think, it seems to me that they deferred a lot to the defensive coordinator, at least on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they went out and got Jamar Chase, which was brilliant. They went out and got a great kicker, which paid off tremendously throughout the playoffs. Guy's been money. And several of the key people they brought in, guys like Eli Apple, guys like Von Bell, guys like some of their defensive ends, Hendrickson, who's had a great – these are guys that Eli Apple, first year, great. Then he had these 2 really poor seasons, and people are like, oh, he's a bust. And a lot of times guys like that, it's because they excel in one system, not another system. You know, Apple was never fast enough to just be a good defensive back no matter what system you put him in. Charles Woodson was a guy who did not excel in a man-oriented system. He got torched first 2 years in the league. Just torched like he was in college, but the Heisman voters conveniently forgot about. I mean, including that Ohio State game where David Boston, the great David Boston, remember him in the league? Nope. Put up over 200 yards man-on-man against Charles Woodson. But you put Woodson up north in the cold in Green Bay, where you can hold all you want in the second half of the season when it gets cold, all of a sudden he's back to playing Pro Bowl kind of football. So Apple's the kind of guy that excels in their system. And so I think whatever issues their GM may have, his deference to defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator preferences definitely paid off in this last season. Some of the best offseason moves were made by Cincinnati.
Yeah, for sure. And we got to talk about this too. We put this in the title, and this is something interesting to look at going forward. Kyler Murray had a great first half of the season. The Cardinals really struggled down the stretch this year. And obviously in the playoffs, it was not a good look against the Rams. And Kyler Murray has now done something interesting to a lot of people, and that's unfollowed the Arizona Cardinals and removed all photos or images or content of him in Arizona Cardinals gear or associated with the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray's removed all Cardinals-related content from his Instagram and unfollowed them. And The Athletic is reporting the same thing. And so now you can see the last thing he had was him in the Pro Bowl and then him as a Sooner. And this is like, really, that's it. And I think last thing he really did was interact with a tweet from Mike Evans, who said, great to catch a touchdown pass from the legend himself, Kyler Murray. But what do you make of this, Barnes? We haven't really heard anything about this other than this coming out. We see this from time to time. They play these games on social media to send a message. Is Kyler Murray unhappy in Arizona? What do you think's going on?
He clearly wants a trade. I don't think that's the smartest decision. I get they struggled down the stretch. That had a lot to do with DeAndre Hopkins being hurt. But maybe he already knows they plan on trading him. I mean, like, an interesting trade would be Kyler Murray to the Houston Texans for Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson would probably excel more than Kyler Murray did, assuming he can solve all of his off-field problems. But look at Myles Garrett, with the racial focus right now in the NFL helps guys like Deshaun Watson, because Myles Garrett tried to take a quarterback's head off and got away with it by faking a racist allegation. And everybody in the league, I was fascinated how they just pretended that never happened all year while praising Myles Garrett. He clearly made it up. There's no doubt he made it up. but the league were like, oh God, we can't talk about that.
All of the black offensive linemen for the Steelers somehow had no issues with the white man screaming the N-word.
And I'm
but
sure
yeah,
the
only
quarterback
Myles
was gonna
Garrett heard it.
Yeah, and a quarterback in the NFL is going to say that live in the game? I don't think so. That was just that was clearly fantasy land. But credit to whoever gave him the idea. Hey, say he said the N-word. Oh yeah. That's why I was trying to rip his head off, not because I have a temper problem. But I think this is a mistake on Kyler Murray's part. I mean, Arizona has done everything possible to help him excel. I mean, in terms of personnel, in terms of coaching, all of it. And so, in my view, he's overperformed and overachieved what I expected out of him because he's still very short. Whatever. I mean, he's not at the traditional height of an NFL quarterback. He's a good runner, but he's not Lamar Jackson. And, they went out and got they stole DeAndre Hopkins from the Texans, the best receiver in the NFL, arguably, when he's healthy.
When he went out, when he got injured, it was a big difference because it showed that none of those other receivers can really create any separation for themselves. They can't really get open themselves. They need to be part of that scheme.
And it exposed Kyler Murray. That Kyler Murray's great success had a lot more to do with DeAndre Hopkins than Kyler Murray. And maybe he's bitter about that. Maybe he thinks, it's because of the coaching scheme and the GM, they just don't, they're not aligned enough to make sure that he excels. But I don't see it as a wise move unless it's something that's already happened, unless he already knows he's going to be traded. But still, I wouldn't do that. This is kind of a, classless kind of move in my view. And more and more players are doing it as leverage, but I don't think it works long term. And it really doesn't make sense. I mean, I would get if you'd been playing and you'd been getting the crap kicked out of you because there were no receivers and no tight ends and no running backs and a coach that was like the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator, then I would get it. He's been just the opposite in Arizona. So, I mean, they were a playoff team this year. I mean, they were banged up, so they weren't going to beat the Rams, and they matched up poorly but he played poorly against the Rams. He made several terrible, terrible decisions that are all on him.
He showed, listen, Joe Burrow took a lot of sacks in that game against Tennessee, but a lot of times a sack is better than an interception, as Kyler Murray showed.
Throwing underhanded from your own end zone just up in the air and seeing what happens.
Exactly. So I think if this is Kyler himself doing this, I think it's a mistake. There are very few places that he could go where he could have better weapons surrounding him. I don't know if I can name one. Not in reality. I mean, maybe he could go to the Rams and get Sean McVay and some of those weapons with that mind and everything. But realistically, no. He's got some very talented wide receivers. He's got a young guy like Rondale Moore, Purdue guy, who can absolutely fly. You got some talented running backs. I don't know how long Zach Ertz is under contract, but they just traded for him. So you've got pieces there. And I have always had my doubts about Kyler Murray. I actually said this year he's kind of changed my mind about him because coming out of college, especially that interview he had with Dan Patrick, where he just seemed to not give a fuck about playing in the NFL, that concerned me. And something like this just makes everyone think about all that all over again. So I think it's a bad look for Kyler. We'll see what happens going forward. Sometimes we see this stuff resolved. Who knows? It could be about anything. But obviously, Kyler Murray unhappy about something in Arizona. Had to talk about that one because very weird news today.
I mean, he's sort of emulating the Deshaun Watson strategy. And look at how that worked out for Deshaun Watson. He sat out the whole year. So, I mean, this approach of I'm going to be real super critical and demand a trade and use social media to do it, usually doesn't work well. And, if they're not imitating the smart coaches, the smart quarterbacks over time. Tom Brady never did anything like that. The Peyton Manning. I mean, even when it clearly was clear that Indianapolis was moving on and that Irsay was moving on, you never saw any of that from Manning.
And you get it worked out. Look at Kirk Cousins. Look at what Kirk Cousins did and how he wasn't getting the contracts he wanted. He kind of maybe did not want to be there, but he signed the franchise tag and played well. Yeah. Signed another franchise tag and played well. And now Kirk Cousins, who's probably a mediocre NFL quarterback, slightly above average, has made a fuck ton of money. He really has, because you knew what you were getting out of him and you knew that he would play. Even if there was a problem, even if he didn't agree, he would go out there and he would play. He would play his hardest. Yeah. And I think that you got to do that in the NFL. Eldrick blasted for 2. Ryan, who irks you more, Tebow or X-Ray Dog's girl? X-Ray Dog's girl. That thing's ugly as shit. At least Tim Tebow's a good-looking guy. Redbeard for 2. Thoughts on Denver's future ownership? I have no idea who's going to win that. I have no idea who's going to win that bid. I know Elway's involved in 1 or 2 of the groups bidding. I know Peyton Manning and the Manning family's involved in 1 or 2 of the groups bidding. I know Peyton owns a lot of Papa John's franchises in Denver too. So they don't come up for sale very often. And whoever's the highest bidder is going to win. That's all there is to it. So
a smart franchise to buy, because Denver's probably one of the top 5, top 6 in terms of fan support, the intensity. Also, what Denver benefits from is their base of support is way outside Colorado. It's kind of like the Cowboys were back in the day. I mean, the Denver fan base extends to the entire Mountain West and to the Midwest. You got to find a bunch
there's not any other teams around there. So
exactly.
you've got Nebraska, you got Wyoming,
Kansas.
You got Idaho, all that. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yep.
You're right.
You got all Idaho, Wyoming, the Dakotas. Some of the Dakotas you find some Viking territory, but some part you'll find Denver Broncos territory. And I was surprised at how much people like Kelly in Vegas, who's on Barstool Sports now. She's a huge Denver Bronco fan, even though she grew up in Kansas. But that's common in Kansas. So their fan base is real. It's intense. It's stuck with them through thick or thin. It's a smart franchise to want to be involved in.
Now, some of their fans are retarded. I can speak from personal. I've hung around a lot of Denver Broncos fans who became part of my family. They were all screaming for Tebow. Always and forever, they were screaming for Tebow. Well, I've wanted to fucking gouge my eyes or my ears out, I suppose, when I heard that, but that is the way it is. You're going to have that in all fan bases. But yeah, there's a lot of very passionate Broncos fans. Chaz Z for 5. Is just me or does the NFL Pro Bowl make women's soccer almost seem watchable? Wouldn't know. Didn't watch it, unfortunately. Jim Crow Biden for 10. The ironic thing about the race baiting clown Flores, he berates Tua, who's Samoan, and literally said Dolphins should have drafted Mac Jones, a white quarterback, over him. Now this clown is crying racism. Yeah, Brian Flores is he's going to be propped up by the mainstream media. And I got some flack for that first video I made, because literally within 30 minutes of when the news broke, I made a video saying that Brian Flores is a fake victim and that none of his allegations are true and he's a bitch. So I got a little pushback, but
it may be true. I wouldn't surprise me if Ross was offered him money to throw games.
That has nothing to do with racism, though.
Yeah, exactly. None of it has anything. None of it had anything to do with racism. The race is absurd. If you've studied the NFL the last 30 years, those allegations made no sense. Black coaches are disproportionately a larger share of the entire coaching crew, and in the average year, they are also overrepresented amongst head coaches. Typically, over the last 20 years, not underrepresented. So, I mean, it's just, and again, it's the league that made more black millionaires than any institution in all of America. So it's a very peculiar institution to it. It's a subject they're super sensitive to, but not because any of it's true.
Yeah. And again, Chris Greer, general manager of the Dolphins, black.
Yeah.
Just want to point that out. Diamond Burton for 20. Barack Obama is multiracial and was considered the first black president. Great point. I think we should apply the same standard to Mike McDaniel. Eric K for 2. Lovie Smith with a record of 92-90, just over 500 LMAO.
But he's above 500. Name the good quarterback he had in that entire history.
Yeah, and also the people that are above 500 don't get fired. They don't just fire. Like now, Lovie Smith, I think, did go 9-7 or 10-6 in his last season in Chicago, but then that time had just kind of run its course there. But you're not going to find these guys who have won 70% of their games on the coaching market. They're the Mike Tomlins of the world. They're the Andy Reids of the world, right? Who was at Philly for a long time. And then he was a really hot coach that everybody wanted when he went to Kansas City. That's the Bill Belichick's of the world. So the fact that he's above 500 actually does say something when you look at head coaching candidates.
And especially, I always measure in the modern era of the NFL how good a coach was when they didn't have a great quarterback. Because even look at Belichick. He's basically around a 500 coach when Tom Brady's not back there. So it's throughout his career, particularly if you go back to his Cleveland Browns early coaching career.
Yeah.
Not
a huge sample size yet, I'll say. In terms of Patriots, so
yeah, no doubt. But it's rare for any coach to be above 500 in the modern NFL with average quarterback play. It just is. And so anybody that I see close to 500, it's the reason why I give Flores credit in the sense that, with sporadic quarterback play, he showed potential. If he'd stayed on that path, he would be far better off. Instead of making it clear, he'd accuse everybody of racism and rat them out for anything. Rat them out for how they behaved in an interview, rat them out for whether they talked to quarterbacks, rat them out for whether they wanted him to lose games to get better draft position. Nobody's going to touch you with a 10-foot pole when you do that.
Yeah. We'll see what happens from this entire thing. I will say Lovie Smith's biggest mistake was not playing Kyle Orton instead of Rex Grossman.
But think about that. When that's your improvement is Kyle Orton, you got to give credit to a coach who got somebody to the Super Bowl when the hope was that Kyle Orton could save you. You know what I mean?
It's true, but he should have. They would have fucking won if they had gone with Kyle. I promise you that. They would have won. But no, had to put in Rex fucking Grossman.
Rex
Grossman was not good for that because Rex made more mistakes than Kyle.
Rex was a mistake waiting to happen. That goes back to his Florida game where he, Steve Spurrier's great last famous game at Florida Field, 18-point favorites, managed to lose 3 times at Florida Field as an 18-point favorite. In his last ever game with the national title, SEC title on the line, lost as an 18-point favorite to Tennessee with Rex the Hex Grossman, who couldn't make some key passes at key points.
Yeah. And I think that Kyle was just better for that team because
he
wasn't going to make the biggest plays like that Rex was capable of, but Kyle was much more careful with that ball, and that's what that team needed. That is what that team needed to be. Control the ball, make smart decisions, let your defense control the other team, force them into mistakes, and it's still if Charles Tillman, one of the best defensive backs in Bears history, doesn't slip and fall on the wet, rainy field, Reggie Wayne does not get open for that touchdown. And right. Peyton Manning doesn't throw that touchdown in the Super Bowl because Peyton Manning sucks. Joe's atmosphere for 5. My favorite Stephen A. Smith moment is the first take eating crow the Monday after my team crushed Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. Go Hawks. That was one of my favorite Super Bowls as well, seeing Peyton Manning get his shit absolutely pushed in by the Seahawks. JK win for 10. Barnes, great streams. Great Monday. Sometimes SJWs plus establishment equals money. Their issues can help out with those options. Nice to get out before noon at plus 85% CFVI, turning salt to gold. Great racing, Ryan. Help out Jeremy. That was a lot. There was a lot in that super chat, but thank you very much, JK Win. Appreciate you. Let's check the Streamlabs really quick. I think we're good there. I did want to point this out too. I didn't know if you saw this. Project Veritas posted a small 45 minutes or 45-second snippet of a video they have coming out that's about ESPN and racism at ESPN. So that's going to be very interesting.
Misogyny at ESPN. ESPN's been hiring and firing people based on their commitment to wokesterism, but many of the people they've done that to, they've discriminated against either in the past or the present for racial or gender-based reasons. So the ESPN has, a lot of confession through projection at their obsession about racism and sexism at ESPN.
Oh yeah, and I wish Daily Wire would have Allison Williams doing more. I don't see too much from her, and I think that's a market Daily Wire should start tapping into a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think that's their weak point. Is sports and how massive it is, and the things. That's what we've done. That's what this channel is. It's literally taking on the bullshit that the media is not.
It's because Ben Shapiro's not a big sports fan. I think that's why they're behind the curve on that issue. And didn't I don't think he was a big gamer either, and that's why they were behind the curve on that potential overlap audience. It's just not. You have a lot of these guys that are just not that are in the legal political space that are not big sports guys. Not like
they think sports and gaming is like a waste of time and don't give a fuck about it. Yeah.
They didn't grow up in the culture that was part of the culture. Richard Nixon and Hunter Thompson first meet each other, and even though Thompson hated Nixon, they both loved football. That's all they talked about. Had a fun football conversation, and so it can be a uniting factor. And for those of us who grew up on it, it's fun, it's tradition, it's history, it's all those things.
Yeah. And before we end, real quick, not related to this at all, but we talked about Joe Rogan a little bit. What do you think about Rumble putting out that offer, $100 million for 4 years for Joe Rogan?
I mean, basically, they're offering him a more lucrative deal than my understanding he's got at Spotify. My understanding is Spotify has got a $10 million a year deal, and he gets to keep his advertising, but he's subject to clearly all these censorship restrictions and controversies. If he's at Rumble, he gets 2.5 times more money than he's getting annually from Spotify, can still bring in all the advertising revenue that he currently brings in. He's proven that at Spotify. Spotify was not a podcasting format. He went over there, and because he stayed interesting with content, he kept and expanded his audience. He did better with Spotify in total audience than he'd done in the past because of the content of what he was doing. So if he goes to Rumble, he'll get the same audience, likely even bigger, because now it's censor-free. He can talk about whatever he wants. And there's no worry, and it enhances his brand. It's just a win-win-win, and it's good for Rumble. So, it's good for free tech. So if he's smart, that's the path he'll go. People have spoken to him about this, and Rumble went public with it today. People had been speaking with Joe about it over the last several days, and he is definitely considering it. And because in my view, I don't know the full details of his contract, but my loose understanding of his contract, Spotify's already breached it by demanding certain subjects get censored.
Well, so the Spotify CEO came out and in his address, his basically apology for Joe Rogan's N-word use.
And promised to safe spaces for streaming services in the future. User safety is now a critical issue for streaming services.
Right. And one thing that he did say was that it was Joe's decision to take those down. And
I suspect that was not fully true. I don't know. I think he needs to put it that way. But every time Spotify has censored, Joe has spun it as being something else other than censorship, and then only ultimately admitted it later on. It does severe damage to his brand to become a corporate censored brand. He knows that as well as anybody. He didn't say that he agreed. That the way he has phrased it is, I agreed with Spotify, which is code word for Spotify saying this is what we need you to do, and him folding on it. And the question is, how many things is he going to fold on? You get rid of 71 episodes because there's a few words in it that are controversial. You got to be kidding me. He looks pitiful. I think he partially understands that. He doesn't fully understand that yet.
I think Joe Rogan never went out there to be some advocate for free speech or political. He never was. I think that's part of the problem. Was he was just a dude. He's a guy who's in the center, maybe even pretty liberal dude who has common sense. And he just wanted to have a podcast where he talked to interesting people, and it blew the fuck up. He never thought he was going to be the guy getting attacked by CNN because he has 10 times their audience. He never was really ready for this. So I don't think he the not apologize thing. I don't know if he still truly understands, even though I've heard him say things like that himself. So it's going to be interesting. I wonder about that contract, if it's that easy that he can just get out and leave and go somewhere else. But at this point in time, Spotify might be looking for a way out too.
Yeah, I think they would negotiate an outcome along those lines. They're in a catch-22 because Rogan added about $5 billion of value when he originally signed on. The subscribers took a huge boost. And they'll definitely take a hit. They'll definitely lose subscribers, and they'll definitely lose some Wall Street value. The big problem is big Wall Street firms like BlackRock are behind this. I doubt Neil Young had anything to do with the proposal. The reality is that half of Neil Young's entire inventory is owned by a company that BlackRock has a significant interest in, and BlackRock's other significant interest is in companies like Pfizer, and has deep ties to China. And so, the China interest would be that Rogan would be censored. The big pharma interest would be that Rogan be censored. And I think, were deliberately driving down the stock of Spotify. And Spotify was losing billions of dollars of Wall Street. That's what they're scared of. They're not so much scared of an internal employee revolution. Those people will fold over time, and you can get replacements that aren't politically obsessed or driven. And wasn't, I don't think, or the controversy or the musicians. Because no young musician.
Nobody cares about those musicians. No one cares about those musicians. But I will say, in terms of the employee stuff, if you have enough employees that all of a sudden they start leaking internal stuff, they start trying to take out executives and stuff like that, that can definitely become a problem.
And that's been a problem from the moment they brought Rogan in, because those people were trying to sabotage constantly. They should have just fired all of them. Just fire them. You don't need them. I mean, Spotify isn't because it's the greatest platform in the world. It's not like they're tech people or what gives them their unique value. They put up, licensed, easy to access musical streams, and that's all it is. And
I think it'd be huge for.
You can get
I think it'd be
Europeans,
huge.
Russians, Central Indians. You can get people from the all around the world that don't care about this wokester bullshit. Happy to work for you. Probably cheaper.
Yeah, I think the move to Rumble would be huge for Rogan, because I don't actually think the goal is to deplatform him. For the people at Spotify, yeah, that's the goal. I think for the mainstream media, for everything, the goal is not to deplatform him because they know the effect that would have. The goal is to quiet him, to make him only talk about certain things. That's what they want.
Disclaimers because he has access to people in Middle America, because he's mostly a liberal, Bernie Sanders backer. Loves Tulsi Gabbard, who's on the left. Not on the left on everything, but generally he's an LA, celebrity comedian, media star. So a lot of the people that listen to him are on the left. And so the fact that he was able to undermine the COVID narrative so effectively just by platforming the smart dissidents is driving them insane. I don't think they fully processed the Rumble alternative. I think they thought if Spotify kicked him off, it would really recede his influence. When he goes to Rumble, not only does his influence expand, but all of other Rumble's content creators' influences expand. And that's some of the most important dissident voices in all of social media. The Malone is always on Rumble. Alex Jones is on Rumble. So, the Rumble, for whatever its critics think, is by far the most free tech with the possibility to scale YouTube style to be a meaningful competitor to YouTube. And Rogan would facilitate that dramatically while making himself freer, richer, and a stronger brand in the process. And so if he realizes it, it's a big winner. Whether he realizes it, open question, because so far he hasn't figured it out.
I'll say this, Rumble. I've been on the platform since November of 2020. I've made 44 cents total. So you got 25 million per year to send to Joe Rogan. I want to see $1 at least. Can I ask for $1? Can I get a fucking $1 from Rumble, please?
That would happen if they were able to get Rogan, because all of a sudden they would probably quintuple in size of subscribers within several months. That was Rogan's effect on Spotify, if you look at it proportionally to where Rumble's at. So that money would trickle down effectively to every other content creator on Rumble.
Yeah, let's hope so. I like Rumble. I know the word censorship free was used in the Rumble statement. And I do think a lot of people, like, this gets thrown out there a lot. The free speech platform gets thrown out there a lot. And obviously there's a difference between less censorship and true, like, free speech, a place we're going to see racial slurs thrown around, stuff like that. Right. I think 95% of people are looking for just less censorship. You know what I mean? To be able to have normal conservative viewpoints.
They don't want to be bombarded by trolls and haters.
Right.
And Rumble tries to walk between those two. Limit the number of trolls and haters, everything, but not discriminate because the content of your speech is on the wrong political side.
Correct.
And it's only if you're just bombarding discriminatory hatred, bombarding discriminatory troll. Nobody likes stalkers in their comment section and harassers. Frankly, YouTube does a lousy job of screening those people out.
Yeah, I personally
hijack the chat.
I personally would prefer a completely free speech. Like, I don't care. I don't care if someone's saying this or someone. I don't care. But I also realize that I feel like I'm in the minority of the general population.
Right. The average person doesn't want to be bombarded by that.
I agree.
Its biggest impact isn't on content creators, it's on users. People won't use a platform like Gab. It's the reason why Gab is kind of capped. They won't use a platform where they're going to get bombarded with trolls and haters and stalkers and harassers. They're like, oh my goodness, I want out of this.
And that's what I'm trying to warn people about Rumble. Not necessarily warn, but put in the right perspective, because Rumble is getter. For lack of better, association, Rumble is getter in the fact that you're going to have less censorship than big tech, but it's not like Gab, or it's not like Odyssey or BitChute that is basically truly you can say whatever you want. So I think people need to know that, because there could actually be some stuff there from in one of those Rogan episodes that maybe they wouldn't allow on Rumble, you know?
Well, yeah,
so I think that's interesting.
Some of those rules are going to be clarified because Viva and I are going to help them rewrite those rules. So those rules will be clear to where there will be nothing that Rogan has ever that it's ever been aired on a Rogan episode that would be censorable. I mean, Nick Fuentes is on Rumble, and it's quite clear what perspective he's coming from. But because he abides by the rules, he's not out there directly promoting self-evident hatred. He's kind of doing it subtly, but he's not doing it directly. Then he's fine. Rumble doesn't kick him off. So, I mean, Rumble's kicked off very few people. It's mostly just been commenters that just harass the heck out of people and troll people. They get kicked off. But their rules will be much better than Getter, but they never want to be gabbed. They don't want to be stuck in the world where if I tune in, I'm going to get bombarded with crap because that kills users. That kills scale over time.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is the App Store. That's always the rule because for something to be available on the App Store, it has to follow certain guidelines. You know, that's why Gab doesn't have an app, you know, things like that. So
you can get it, but it's like this crazy convoluted way you get it on your phone.
You would have to do I forget exactly the terminology, but you can get an app on your phone from like almost any website. So like I could download it on my phone just to have essentially access to the website. That's the type of app you would be talking about. It starts with a P, but I don't remember what it is, the technology specifically. But yeah, just thought that was interesting, especially with all the news today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I've been promoting it now for a week for Rogan to go to Rumble. And we have mutual friends, and those mutual friends have recommended it to him. And his initial instinct is he just assumes he will make more money on Spotify, and that's by playing the apology game. And I think he's mistaken about that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it has a lot to do with his mindset. You know, Joe Rogan's he's not out there to change the world, to be honest with you. He's not. Like, he got this audience, and I think he feels very responsible and like is very worried about like what to do with it. And he's not maybe built from the same, you know, he's not covering the same cloth that we are necessarily in terms of, you know, liberty and free speech and all that stuff. It's different for him. He never planned on this shit. So we'll see what happens. I do know that JK Win for 2 said, my last super chat, JRE plus Rumble offer equals plus 85% options boost for that stock. I think that's what he's talking about. So There you go. Interesting. Very interesting. But guys, thank you. A great stream once again. Robert, we appreciate you joining us. What can you tell everybody about sportspicks.locals.com?
Yeah, so I'll have a bunch of pick recommendations for the Super Bowl. Have made money on 10 straight Super Bowls. Hopefully that continues. No guarantee, of course. But we'll have probably 50 or so picks for the Super Bowl, including I'll probably have, people can see it at sportspicks.locals.com. It will be there. And in fact, all these picks will be free. You don't have to become a paying subscriber. They'll be free for this season. That won't be forever, but they'll be free for this season. So if you want to get some free picks and recommendations, picks and predictions and previews, sportspicks.locals.com, which if you had been a subscriber this year, you would have doubled your money so far.
There you go. Absolutely. Check it out. And this is the most fun sports betting day of the year with all the props. Do you have a pick? Can you reveal a pick? What color will the Gatorade be?
I don't have a pick on the Gatorade, though. I would say orange, if they give one, is above average because of the Bengals. But, you know, the pick is kind of the Gatorade pick is probably going to be consistent with, in this instance, the Super Bowl teams, because you have blue Rams and orange Bengals. So I presume their Gatorade will match that. Doesn't always happen. I do think the sacks, for example, will be more than 5. I do like Cincinnati first half getting 3 points, especially if it went 3.5. That'd be real nice. I lean towards the over, but I'll be finalizing them this week at sportspicks.locals.com. But yeah, the Gatorade's always fun. Heads or tails. If you can somehow get plus money, if you can get plus money on heads or tails, absolutely take it.
You got to, because it only makes sense. And then, of course, always interesting, how long will the national anthem last? That's always a good one too.
That tends to leak, by the way, a day or two before, because they'll practice indoors. And somebody will tape it and leak what they think that. So I've made some money on those bets by what's been leaked over the years.
There you go. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out. We will talk to you next time. Peace
out.